Yo, what's up? This is another episode of Mindshack. Mindshack is focused on sharing opinion and debate from an African student's perspective on big topics we face every day. My name is Jean-Claude. I'm a host of this podcast. Unfortunately, today the other hosts are not with me. That's okay though. Today we're going to be talking about perfectionism. We decided it would be great. We bring on a guest by the name of Ryan Macharika. So Ryan, thank you so much for joining us. Ryan, if you can take a second to introduce a little short bit about yourself as well as why you've decided to join us.
What's up, everyone? As you have heard, my name is Ryan. I want to talk about perfectionism because, well, I feel like at one point I was like a perfectionist. I think I still have like some traits of it, so it's been like tough to deal with it. So this is something that I feel like we have to talk about.
Yeah, I think you raise an important point. We live in a life where it's like passive. Some people are perfect. Some people in their minds are perfectionists, and they don't realize it. They put a lot of pressure on themselves, and they don't realize it. And because of that, it affects a whole part, a major part of their life without them realizing. So yeah, firstly, we want to map out what exactly we're talking about within perfectionism in Africa. We're talking about it on like a personal point of view as well as like a broader perspective. Ryan, if you don't mind, I'm gonna have you start it up with a little bit of a definition in your own term in what you believe is perfectionism.
I think perfectionism is like that idea of trying to achieve perfection. You have like this picture that you've conjured up in your mind, like, I want to achieve this, and you won't be settled until you've achieved exactly that. You won't settle for less. No matter how close you get, it will never be enough. So you thrive and drive until you get to that.
Okay, I largely agree with your start of the definition. You just in general putting pressure on yourself. But what's the root cause? Like, why do we as people feel like we need to be putting this sort of pressure on ourselves, whether it's conscious or not conscious?
Like I had like this friend of mine, right? And he used to tell me like he hated to hear about success stories. But like you hear someone tell you, oh, like you can hear Mark Zuckerberg saying, oh, so I started Facebook when I was 20, when I was 21, when I was in college, and I became a billionaire. What? Like people saying all this stuff, and then like when they're saying, oh, you have to dream big. More, I don't know how many quotes I've come across that tell you to dream big. But there is like a lot of things that are left out when they tell you what went through for them to achieve. Like when you see a painting in a museum and you're like, oh, this is like the best thing I've ever seen. What you don't see is like the hundreds of drafts that are left in the workshop. You only see this one painting in the museum. You don't know like what this person went through. So you just didn't think, okay, I'm just gonna do one painting and boom, I'm just gonna be successful like that. And that's not it. So like that mentality to give you pressure, like, so this person did it, I also want to do it. But like unless you know the full story, you won't get to understand like how much that person actually had to go through. And then you understand that like that person was probably not a perfectionist, but he went through so many things before he could achieve that. But then they hide all that stuff, made it seem like it was easy, but in truth it's not.
That's an interesting way you put it, because I have my own definition. It's not from the same angle that you speak of, but your angle makes a whole lot of sense. In my perspective, and a little bit backed up by the research I ended up doing, like I found that the root is somewhat lying in agreement with you, where it's an early life experience that ends up shaping the pressure you end up putting yourself. But in this case, it's people having sort of received a lot of outside pressure in a negative way. So blame or punishment or criticism, moments where they were made to feel like they were lesser. And then as a result, they were like, either they formed a sort of something along the lines of a fighting spirit and were like, this is what a picture of perfectionism is, and I must strive to it. I feel like I'm a testament of that in some weird, twisted way. I feel like I'm a testament to that, because I generally put a lot of pressure on myself, and it's probably because I have this idea of what I need to be. And because, in some regards, it's probably helped me, but in some ways, I'm holding myself back because I'm trying to some level be controlling. And that's where I'm shifting towards in this case. Because in some level, there's this compulsive thinking, there's this compulsive idea and pressure, there's this need to constantly check yourself, a little level of control that you need. So there's some relations to OCD and perfectionism. Because it's compulsive, you constantly think there's a place that you're trying to get to. So do you see a relation between the two?
I just want to like mention, like on your point, you're saying you see like the cause quite differently. It's not like that. Like there is one cause of perfectionism. Like there are different causes, like why someone would set such high standards for themselves. People have like different reasons for them to do it. It's just like what I said was just like one reason of why someone just see someone who's successful and be like, I want to be like them, and then sort of like take it from there. But there could be like so many reasons why someone would want to be a perfectionist. As like, yeah, I mean, perfectionism is a psychological condition, right? And I'm not sure I know much about OCD, right? But thing is, it comes from being obsessed with success, right? There's like the difference between high achievers and perfectionists. High achievers just want to achieve big. If I aim for 100% and I get 99%, I've done great, right? If I'm a perfectionist, there's only two things. Like your life is simply binary, 1 and 0. You fail or you pass. That's it. It's either you get 100% or you get anything other than that. So if you get a 99 or a 50, it's all the same to you. You feel the same afterwards because you're obsessed, and obsessive behavior is always not good, right? Because you go to extra lengths to try to get that. You do whatever you think it takes to try to achieve that. You will not be satisfied with anything other than that. So it will lead to even more psychological conditions like depression when you fail, putting pressure on yourself, overworking yourself, and sometimes not even working because you're afraid that if you start working, you're gonna fail. So if like all those psychological conditions come from that, it's terrible, really.
That's quite true. Particularly the way you start, because there are causes well beyond what we just mentioned there. You're very right to say that. Yeah, and I think perfectionism like goes. It's a very personal thing, and people kind of deal with it in different ways. But obsession to something that might not be realistic is part of the big problems. Hey, by the way, I shared my shtick, right? I said a little bit of the way this connected to my experience. I want to know from your end, do you face this in a personal way? Is this you just speaking from your observations? Let me know.
I mean, at this point, I don't think I can say I'm a perfectionist now, but I can definitely say at one point I used to be a perfectionist, especially like when I was doing my O-level. Like I had this goal, like I wanted to have like all A's, and like, you focus on that. Anything is never enough. So like you have like some of your classmates, they're happy when they pass or they get to do anything, and you're not. You just want to get A's. But then you get to a point when you realize, like, start to set certain goals for yourself, because it goes beyond you just getting A's, right? So like getting A's may be the main goal, and then so to get there you set like mini goals, such as like I have to study like 4 hours a day. And when you don't study 4 hours a day, you start to like put stress on yourself, like, why didn't I do this? And then like, trying to fit time everywhere. And then now you're trying to sleep late because like probably something came up in the afternoon, and then you couldn't start 4 hours. So now I have to make sure I got like the other chores I missed in the afternoon, like at 2 a.m. up to like 4 a.m. because I have to get those 4 hours in. And now you start to put so much pressure in yourself. But like it get to a point, at least for me it did, after like failing multiple times, right, and thinking that I'm so useless, like, was when you fail and you're a perfectionist, you start to think I'm worthless, like I can't even do this. But then you start to realize, like, even from your failure and you achieve something after you failed, you realize that no, it's actually okay to fail. And it's only when you realize that you can sort of like realize that like I don't have to get everything.
Yeah, I mean that's really true. There's a lot of power in coming to like realizations and freeing yourself of control or obsessive behavior of that nature. I can kind of relate to that. Also, you spoke of your personal experience, right? Like you didn't even speak about the external experiences. You have guardians, brother. They're guardians that also put standards that you need to accomplish. They set out within themselves your standards. Those standards are relayed onto you, and you gotta make those standards. In some people's environments, there's criticism that comes with it, strong criticism. It's always your fault. But this is borders on perfectionism. That, I mean, the foundations of what causes it. But this is also the growing pains, the life experience of being young and getting older. And I think the ideas that are set out are really part of the bigger problem that's happening here. So that's cool. I think we've kind of covered on a personal level how people might experience this. And I think we didn't cover everything. Definitely, there's a little more that could have been covered and spoken on. But at least from our context, it's the right grounds, at least from what I see. So I'll then just shift over. I want to try put this into like a broader look and perspective, right? So do you think in general, a lot of people in Africa would face the idea of perfectionism?
I totally understand. That makes sense. Okay, so perfectionism comes in sort of different ways, right? It's not all about just saying maybe I want to get 100% in maths and I have to get that, right? I think the easiest way to understand is more you have a picture in your mind, right? And you are trying to replicate that in real life exactly as that. So let's say I have a goal that I'm going to become a CEO by the age of 25. I've painted this picture, the company, I've seen my office and everything. I have to try by all means to make that happen, right? I've made a plan or I haven't, but I know it has to be done by the age of 25 or else I'm a failure. So this is how a perfectionist does something, right? You make up a picture in your mind as detailed as possible and say, this is supposed to be happening. This is supposed to happen, right? In most times it can really help you. Let's say you want to achieve something, right? It's a very tangible goal, right? So I feel there are a lot of problems that have come from that. Let's say on a national level, right? I feel that's the kind of thing that most countries face. Let's say a certain president, right, of a country has a certain goal for his country. This is what I want. Now, the thing is, right, a president cannot achieve such a goal in 5 years. Now, you get to a point where you believe that I'm the only person who can achieve this. This is my vision. This is my goal. That's how you end up with detectors, because people are I want to do this. And if anyone comes in power other than me, it's not going to happen. And I'm going to be a failure. And because I'm such a perfectionist, it has to happen. And I'm so obsessed with this picture that I've painted in my mind. If anyone comes, which means I have to do everything in my power to make sure this comes to life, right? So you end up trying by all means to stay in power, and in the process you start killing people and stuff like that, just so that you stay in power, because you believe that this is what I want to do, But at the same time, right, you have because a lot of people in Africa have a lot of problems. As a result, they're sort of driven by saying maybe I have to get out of this town, I have to do something better, I have to help my parents and stuff like that. And then they sort of want to set high standards for themselves, which will sort of help them to go further in life. And then in Africa, it's so hard to achieve a lot because the economies in most of the countries are just not that good, right? As a result, so usually when perfectionists fail something, they get depressed and they sort of when you go if say you want to do something by 25 and when you're 25 you realize that's not gonna happen. You say you want to be a millionaire when you're 25. You're 25, you still don't even have a job yet. You realize it's not gonna happen. At that point you're just I'm a failure. Let me just realize that you are not gonna set like a let's go like I wanna maybe make 100,000. We're just gonna go all the way down, be like, okay, so there's nothing. So you sort of move at a slower pace now, and then it sort of like brings people down in that way, you know. So like it affects people a lot.
So you said something in there that I caught. You've got your recording, so we should be good. But you said something in there that I caught, like, because it's something I read today. So it's kind of back on the personal experience topic. We're going to jump back there, and then we're going to come back to the, like, global and African look and context and stuff. I read something today that said, to my 23 to 28-year-olds, you've reached the age where people around you are starting to give up on themselves because they think it's too late. Don't let that energy rub off on you. This moment is critical. Push through. When I read that, I was like, this is a little bump up of needing to like set out peace within yourself when it comes to topics of perfectionism. Like you need it starts with you. And once you get it right, once you feel you've put it you've come to peace with the idea of where you want to be, then there's a lot of power. You free yourself up to a lot. So while we're still on the personal experience conversation, there's a question that came up, part of what you said earlier. I want to know, what did you change or say to yourself when you spoke about your personal experience earlier? What did you change or say to yourself for you to consider yourself no longer being a perfectionist?
When you're a perfectionist, right, you don't know you are, but you get to a point where you start to fail a lot, right? And then it's kind of depressing, really. What's like, the worst part about this is like, when you're a perfectionist tend to like procrastinate a lot, because you just don't want to do something. There's this scary feeling that I might do this like the wrong way. And like if you have deadlines set for yourself, like I remember when I was starting out, so like when I was in A level, right, I like just after I finished A level, I thought I wanted to write a book. And then I set out this guideline. I was gonna write this many words a day, or like 2,000 words a day, which was gonna be less than 3 hours. That should be easy, right? And you don't think much into it when you're starting, because you know, just writing, like how hard can it be? And then when you actually start, at first maybe it goes over what you're doing, and then get to a point where you just like, you sort of can't write anything. You realize the day is over. You haven't written a single word. The next day it's the same thing. And then it's a week. You can't write a thing. And then you get to a point where you've forgotten all about it. And then you start to sort of stress yourself and all of that things. And then you're like, I'm such a failure. Maybe I had like a deadline set like in 3 months that I should be done with the first draft. But then you are nowhere near. And then it sort of like gets to you that like you're failing, right? But then like you start to sort of like look up for like inspiration or help on like people who've like written books before. And then you start to hear them, get to hear like the other side of like what you're doing. Because like maybe before you just know that like people just write books in like 3 months, don't know like how they do it. But now you start to hear about those people who take like years to write. You know, the people who take long, the people who make mistakes. And when you hear from them, you realize like what you're doing is normal. Then you start to realize that it's actually okay to fail. You just have to like, what matters is that you write something. You don't have to write this many ways. You don't have to be too strict with yourself. And then you start to go back, and then I start to like writing a sentence if I can, 1 page a day, until I get back into it. And then when I finish the first draft, just realized that I've just finished this. I mean, it took longer than I thought, but I finished it. And like, I'm still young. I still have a lot of time. And I didn't die because I didn't finish on time. You know, it's kind of okay to fail. And at first, it's hard to believe that it is okay to fail. But as you go on, you still fail some more on other things. And like the more you feel, gonna realize that failure is not gonna be, it's not gonna leave you. It's always gonna be part of your life. And if you don't embrace it now, you're gonna like be depressed. I mean, for some people it's gonna be hard to believe, but like, you know, I've kind of like mastered the art of like trying to convince myself to believe in certain things. So like I always feel better about myself. So I guess that's like how it sort of helped me.
So I'm gonna cut you off there for a second. I think it's good to reiterate this type of stuff because I even in my personal experience, I find that's just one of the most difficult things. So like I'm learning from that, creating concepts and ideas of things in a way that's like consumable, right? Because I tend to, we tend to just like go. There's external ideas of how things should be done, and those external ideas shape up the way we're gonna work. Sometimes we don't think of it from our own experience or build our own idea of it, and we just consume it and decide that's the idea, and then that thing starts to chow away at us. So finding an ability to change those things has a lot of power. Change the way we think about things of ideas, shape our own ideas of things. So yeah, I think there's a point. There's a point there.
Yeah, like I said, like you look at the other side of like if you just look at things like one way in which like I'm saying, like I just thought like books were like simple to write, but when you start to see people failing, and then you start to yourself that it's okay, and it's like I put like my happiness first, so I have to think like, is this gonna this like I started writing because I liked writing, but now it's not making me happy, it's now making me depressed, so I need to go back to the state where I'm actually happy doing it. It sort of helps you, like if you try to get back that, like if you tried this because it was fun, is it still fun now? If not, what's the difference between then and now?
I've tried to I always feel like I need to be like I need to be doing things um like constantly growing myself professionally in different environments. I need to be just pushing myself constantly, and there's something that almost feels like an idea that I'm trying to reach. I don't know what that idea is, but I'm trying to reach it. However, I think of it in a way that kind of helps me grow based on the challenges I face. I see like failure and the consequences rather of challenges as positive, in the sense that whatever's gonna happen and whatever I'm gonna feel out of it is like the initial feeling of it. And then there's a longer objective term view of what I've gone through and how it ties to where I'm trying to go. I put air quotations there. So the idea of perfectionism, we've kind of twisted that one from like broader to personal, but I think in some weird way it is that. It's like micro to macro. Starts from individuals and beyond that, and then when we're starting to look a little beyond that, this this idea of failure being something that's gonna kill us is like the high achievers, like you say, have been able to use a completely opposite sort of thinking in order to achieve the things they have and change the environment they live in. And in some way, at least for the hopes of what I've seen within these high achievers, is that they see the impact of the work they're doing. And impact is highly important in different sectors and different levels. Once they see the impact and value they're bringing, it fires them up a little bit more.
I think I'll probably just like to say, it's okay to dream big. It's okay to set goals for yourself. It's okay to have that sort of picture here for yourself to, to work hard or put pressure for yourself. But then at the same time, it's like what will just be a difference between you and someone with a psychological disorder is just for you to understand that at the end of the day, you are probably not gonna get that. If that fails, you should have. I feel like a backup plan is a very good way of getting out of perfectionism. And most perfectionists, I don't think they necessarily have a backup plan because they believe that this picture perfect life they have is gonna work. So if you have a backup plan, you are basically telling your subconscious mind that I'm most likely gonna fail. So if that happens, I'm gonna land on this. So I feel like a backup plan is a good way of like trying to stopping that perfectionist in you, to saying, you are actually saying probably gonna fail. If you don't have a backup plan, you believe you're not, and whatever you think is gonna work. So, yeah, have a backup plan, expect failure, and set goals, and just don't put too much pressure on yourself. Because pressure from yourself I feel like, is much more worse than pressure from other people. Because you're more likely to just hold yourself accountable than like other people will. Some people just be like, okay, I understand, but like if you put pressure on yourself, if you like try to punish yourself for things that you feel, it's just gonna, you won't have like someone to be like, it's okay, this happened. Because like most likely no one will know you're putting this pressure on yourself. So you won't have no one to support you saying, hey, it's okay, and this and that. But if someone's putting pressure on you, at least you can be telling yourself that, and you can be telling other people like, so I'm having pressure from my parents. And then they'll be like, hey, it's okay, don't worry about this. But pressure from yourself, you won't have anyone for that. You just be by yourself. And you won't even have yourself on your side.
In addition to that, real points, I feel like I'm a person that feels like they constantly have to be running. I don't know where I'm going, but I'm running somewhere. And it's really important. Like the more I get older and kind of realize it's important to take time to think things through. It's important to think through not only your plan for what's coming up. You don't always have to have a plan. This is just me talking. But not only your plan, but also your idea of things. So try think through different types of things. That's what I've been enjoying doing now. Different concepts and making them concepts. And creating a bank of reasons why you think in certain ways for certain things and what those things mean. And in that way, you develop a relationship with it. You develop understanding of your own understanding of different things, and then external inputs play a part in shaping what you think of these things, opposed to starting with external ideas and then everything is somewhat external. Environments shape us up, but this seriously speaks to taking the time to take a second, think about different types of things. Just take a walk, take a breather, and have your mind understand different things, opposed to thinking about it some way you're trying to be, whatever the case is, running after things without taking the time to digest for yourself certain concepts and ideas. So anyway, Ryan, thank you so much. I think the points you've mentioned throughout this have been quite insightful and speak to a little of how you think of things and a message in general that's important for people to think of things in that way. Failure is a means. Failure is gonna help you. Failure should be a comfortable. We should have a comfortable relationship with failure. So to speak to that, Ryan, thank you so much for joining. I hope you enjoyed the experience, brother. In conclusion, guys, thank you so much if you've listened all the way through. We really appreciate you having listened. This was the last episode 10 of this season of Mindshack. We'll be taking a short little break, and then we'll continue hitting it off with some new ideas, new feel of how we do things. So I hope you've enjoyed the season we've created so far. You've somewhat tried to stay tuned, and we thank you for that. We thank you for your feedback too. So once again, you can find us on our Instagram on mind_shack_ and engage with us there the most, and still keep in touch with the ideas and sort of stories we'll be throwing out without our episodes going, just for the meanwhile. So thank you so much for listening through. Cheers.